Welcome to Demystifying IT with Bopi Dal and Sarjeet Kanungo, speaking the language of IT with innovators and pioneers that have harnessed the power of information technology.
Thanks for joining us for our very first episode. In each show, Bopi and I will explore the remarkable stories of tech leaders and gain insight into how technology can be leveraged to achieve extraordinary success. Our guest this week has been at the forefront of information technology for almost 30 years and has held senior roles at some of the biggest organizations in the world, including Keurig Dr. Pepper. His name is Tom Farrah, and he's the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Vistra, an energy company based in Irving, Texas. Vistra provides essential resources for customers, commerce, and communities. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarjeet. Great to be here. Appreciate you taking the time with me.
So my first question to you, Tom, is what inspired you to pursue a career in information technology?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I actually originally started out in engineering. Always had an interest in mechanical things, loved cars, and intended to pursue engineering. And once I got into college, started out my first year and had a few computer science courses along with the engineering curriculum. And it just sort of clicked for me. It was kind of at a time where computers and technology were really starting to come into their own. And it just created a really great appeal. So I ended up changing my major. I moved into a dual math and computer science major. And that's really what kind of set me down the path.
That is awesome. It's not unusual for people to transform from engineering to computer science. What made you decide to join Vistra as its CIO?
Well, so I had spent 15 plus years at what is now Keurig Dr. Pepper. The company went through a number of iterations. It was predominantly Dr. Pepper Snapple Group for most of that time. And I was the CIO there for about 9 years. Then we merged with Keurig Green Mountain, which is what created Keurig Dr. Pepper. And so as part of that merger, originally I worked with Keurig Green Mountain to help integrate the company in terms of the IT integration. And then there was actually an opportunity. The company was creating, in addition to the integration team, they created a transformation team, which was really to look at how we transform the business. And there was an opportunity to be the business lead for one of those transformation tracks, which was around the company's direct store delivery route to market. So in a consumer packaged goods company, direct store delivery is basically where you own the sales, the delivery, the merchandising of your products at retail stores on the shelf. And so we had large teams that do that. And so as a company, there was an opportunity to look at the various markets we compete in. We had both our internal bottling and direct store delivery, as well as we licensed to a lot of third-party bottlers. And we had a lot of overlap in different markets. And so that transformation track was all around how do we build a strategy to maximize the profitability of whether it's us delivering our brands or looking at a partner who could do a better job. And so it was making decisions around, do we acquire back rights to brands that third parties are handling, or do we sell our brands in those markets to somebody else who could do it better? And so that was about a year and a half of work leading that track, building out the strategy and coming up with an executional plan in terms of how we go and change our approach in those markets. So I finished that work, got it to a point where we started the execution in the specific markets. And at that point, it was kind of a really great inflection point to say, well, where do I go next? And I really wanted to get back into IT and do what I love doing. And at the time, it so happened Vistra was looking for a new CIO to lead their technology areas in their business. And it just kind of worked out. And that's what really kind of drove me making the move to Vistra. I've spent my career, like I mentioned, a lot of time in consumer packaged goods, previously a long time in automotive and manufacturing, as well as pharmaceutical. This was a completely different industry to me, a very fascinating, complex business. And so it just felt like a really great opportunity.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Was it comfortable or uncomfortable for you to get out of IT and do this business transformation? What was the thought process in your mind? Was it uncomfortable, comfortable, or somewhat comfortable?
It's interesting, Sarji, because it's always, there's always a level of discomfort, right? When you go into something that's not the core of what you do. But, I was really fortunate in all my years there to really learn, get engaged, and understand the business at a very deep level. The technology teams there, we developed and built out the route to market systems that our business used to sell, distribute, and merchandise, across the country. And so it was a great opportunity to learn, understand, and get under the covers with the business. At the same time, because the IT organization obviously supports across the business, we also supported our what was called our concentrate business, and that's where we manufactured the concentrates for the different products, and we sell that to third-party bottling partners who then bottle it and do the distribution. And so, really having the opportunity to learn, understand, and have those deep roots in both sides of that business, it kind of positioned me well for what that transformation track needed. And so I was really comfortable in taking on the role because it was an area, I was familiar with. It was exciting to be able to drive a transformation that was really going to change and position how we operated as a company. So that part was really exciting, but it absolutely took me, somewhat out of my comfort zone and, kind of forces you to work and think a little bit differently than what you're used to.
Yeah, I really commend you for that. In our business, I have the opportunity or the privilege to work with many of your peer CIOs, and I'll tell you, like, probably two-thirds of them will not take that opportunity. But I have also seen that the one-third that who go and make themselves uncomfortable, they tend to get a seat at the table, or the proverbial table.
Yeah, I think that's our goal in life as IT for a company is to understand that business and to help do things that drive value and help the company grow. And so, really, what better way than to actually spend time in the business function so that you understand and think the way that your business partners do. So things like that are just great opportunities, for development in terms of IT professionals.
Fantastic. Well, so let's spend a little time learning about some of the lessons that you learned from your previous IT roles, like at General Motors and Pfizer, Electronic Data Systems.
It's also really great when you get an opportunity to work across different industries like that. Like, yeah, as you mentioned, I started out my career with EDS, Electronic Data Systems, which is a little different because it's an IT service provider, and it ultimately ended up being owned by General Motors for a long period of time. So it really became the IT organization for GM worldwide. And that's where, I really started in terms of my manufacturing background and experience. And I think the biggest lessons learned and the things I take away from spending time in that industry is, you get to learn things like Lean, Six Sigma, continuous improvement. And I'm a big believer in that. And it's a big part of what I do in terms of running IT organizations. I think taking lessons from how those businesses really learn about the importance of people and ideas from people who do the work, and how you always look at improvement, because there's always ways to improve. And so that was a lot of, really great learnings that I took away from being in the automotive industry. When I transitioned to pharmaceutical with Pfizer, very, very different industry, very different sets of context around it, a lot of investment in R&D and development of new drugs, highly regulated industry. You really get the opportunity to learn about how you work with organizations like the FDA, and how you deal with validation and strict protocols and all of those things, as well as the really fun science side of what you do in those industries. And so you kind of pair together a couple things like continuous improvement and lean out of manufacturing with highly regulated but willingness to invest in new technology, and it kind of creates a great set of learnings and skills. And you transition into, like I said, I had a long tenure in consumer packaged goods, and it's a little bit of both, because you've got manufacturing, you've got sales, marketing, there's a lot of investment in products because that's the lifeblood of the business. And so it kind of helps you see those different ways of how IT not only supports but contributes into those businesses. My real learning out of consumer packaged goods is that IT, like any other function in the business, has an equal accountability to drive the company, to create growth, to create opportunities and value. And, really, when you look at it that way, and it kind of goes back to our earlier discussion on the route to market transformation I did, but really learning and understanding that, and coming up with ways to apply technology to drive the business and drive growth, that's really where ultimately you want to get to as an IT leader and as an organization that supports a business like that. So, a lot of really great learnings out of very different industries. But I think it's really what adds up to give you a great foresight and depth of view of how you drive value in a business.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very interesting statement you made, and I'm gonna pick up the thread on that. And I'll paraphrase in my word. What I heard you telling is the IT has become a huge lever to drive competitive advantage and help companies even expand into new market. How do you see IT playing a role in the industry you are currently in?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, back to your original statement, absolutely. I think IT really can be a differentiator, a competitive advantage, and, a contributor to growth in the company. And it's really, it takes the IT organization to look outside of the day-to-day service you provide, the things the business asks you to do, and how do you bring things that the business would never think to ask you to do. Case in point, I go back to what I was talking about at my last company and the route to market systems we used. The company used standard technology that most of the industry did. It was really about taking orders and be able to fulfill those orders, but it really didn't do anything to help perpetuate sales and growth. And in a consumer packaged goods business, for example, it's all about selling in promotions, new products, getting displays in stores, things that put more product into the store, and people will tend to buy more of the product. And so we really looked at a bunch of technology, and without the business asking, came up with concepts of ways that when the route salesperson could go into the store, they had immediate access to all of the current promotions that are going on. They had pictures of displays they could build in the store, and they could bring them up and have a conversation live with the manager of that store to show them the activities, and they could sell it in right there. And by doing that, it would trigger a merchandiser to be scheduled to come and build a display or put the promotion in or whatever it happened to be. And it really, really transformed the way the business worked at store level. And it contributed to significant growth in the company because we were really able to help our sales organizations drive the intake of promotion and activity in the stores by double-digit percentages. And that translates into, significant growth for the company. Transitioning to here at Vistra, very different industry. I'm still in the overall spectrum, relatively new, but really learning about this company. And it's a very complex business because at the heart of it, we are an independent power producer, meaning we have generation plants across the country in competitive markets, and we generate and we sell and trade that industry in the open markets. And that's the way our business works. We're also a retail provider, and so we have retail brands that sell retail electricity to, home consumers like yourself and me, and to businesses and others. But the core of that business is really that trading of those commodities. And when you think about this industry, which has been, predominantly a fossil fuel driven industry with coal plants and gas plants and things like that, the whole industry is really transitioning to clean, zero carbon, renewable type of energy. And it has different challenges. Things like coal plants, gas plants, nuclear plants, they're dispatchable assets, which means, you can control when they come on and start putting power onto a grid. Renewables are not quite like that. Solar farms obviously are dependent on the sun shining. Wind, which we don't do wind, but wind, farms are obviously dependent on the wind blowing. We're a big investor into battery storage, where we can store energy and dispatch it when needed. So a lot of the technology that we're looking at today is helping to drive that transition. For example, you look at solar farms, which are very large acreage with a lot of panels on there that, need to be kept clean. You need to manage the vegetation around it. You have to do maintenance on, thousands of acres of equipment. And the goal is to really work with those to be unmanned sites. It's difficult for people dealing with that size of an environment. And so we're looking at how we take technology. We're using things like drones, AI, machine learning, a number of different technologies, and building capabilities that allows the business to do things remotely with the technology, but in real time. For example, if we see energy production on a string of panels dropping, typically somebody would have to go out and walk through all that acreage and try and figure out where it is. We're using drones. They can be dispatched and fly missions out over a certain area. They can use thermal imaging as well as visual pictures, and our AI systems that are gathering data to kind of pinpoint where the problems are. And then we can direct people, to go to that specific area and fix the issue. And that has a big impact because it can be, megawatts that we're losing in terms of potential power putting on the grid and obviously, selling in the markets for the company. So that's an example of really where, again, kind of using that same type of innovation, thinking outside of what we know and do today, and how do we apply technology to help drive a new area that our business is working in.
Fascinating. Wow, you guys clearly thinking where information technology can help your business foundationally, not just IT as a department. That is fascinating to hear.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Tom, we have to stop here. But coming up in the second part of my talk with Tom Farrah, the Senior Vice President and the Chief Information Officer of Texas-based energy company Vistra, Tom shares the mindset all tech leaders need to embrace.
You focus on actions. You focus on things that you believe will create the result, and the result will happen.
This has been Demystifying IT with Bopi Dal and Sarjeet Kanungo. Connect with Bopi and Sarjeet at demystifyingit.com. where you can take a quick assessment to explore the opportunities you may be leaving on the table and learn to expand your market or create a new one by building your business foundations on technology. Demystifying IT is a production of Forbes Books.